What happens when a car company builds something so fast, so dangerous, and so politically inconvenient that the only option is to make it disappear? Carroll Shelby found out. Between 1962 and 1968, at least 5 Cobra prototypes were deliberately sabotaged, hidden, abandoned, or ordered scrapped by Ford Motor Company. Not because they were failures, because they were too good. One was starved of parts so it couldn't race at Le Mans. Another was fitted with twin superchargers, sold to a comedian, and driven off a cliff. A third vanished into a California storage unit for 3 decades. And the very first Cobra ever built, the car that launched the entire program, was actually a con job. One car, repainted 5 times, paraded in front of journalists to fake a production line that didn't exist. These are the Shelby Cobras that Ford never wanted you to see. 13 years before any of that happened, Carroll Shelby was a chicken farmer in East Texas with a bad heart and an empty bank account. He'd won Le Mans in 1959 driving an Aston Martin, but by 1961, doctors told him his racing career was over. A heart condition called sublingual nitroglycerin angina meant he literally raced with nitro pills under his tongue in case his heart gave out mid-corner. So Shelby did what any reasonable, retired race car driver would do. He walked into Ford Motor Company's offices, acted like he was a millionaire, and convinced them to give him engines for a car that didn't exist yet. Ford executive Homer Perry later recalled that Shelby talked such a big game, they gave him $25,000 and 2 engines before anyone realized he was broke. Lee Iacocca reportedly told his people to just give Shelby the money and get him out of the building before he caused problems. Ford sent 2 260 cubic inch V8s. AC Cars in England shipped a modified Ace chassis on credit. Dean Moon, who ran one of the most respected hot rod shops in Southern California, offered his garage in Santa Fe Springs. And in February 1962, Shelby, Moon, Phil, Remington, and brothers Doyle and Roy Gamble assembled the very first Cobra in under 8 hours. They dropped in that Ford engine, bolted up a Borg-Warner 4-speed manual, and took it out between the oil derricks behind the shop. Moon remembered they got drunk and drove it around in the dark between the pumping jacks. When nothing broke, they figured they had a winner. That car was CSX 2000. And for the next 5 months, it was the only Cobra on the planet. This is where the con starts. Shelby needed Ford to believe he had a real production operation going. So he had CSX 2000 repainted over and over. First, it was bare aluminum, scrubbed clean overnight with 10 boxes of Brillo pads. Then custom painter Dean Jeffries sprayed it pearlescent yellow for the New York Auto Show in April. Then red, then blue. Each time a journalist or a Ford executive visited the shop in Venice, California, they saw what they thought was a different car. Sports Car Graphic magazine called it one of the most impressive production sports cars they'd ever tested. The ruse worked. Ford committed to full financial backing for the program. CSX 2000 still carries features no other Cobra ever had. Inboard rear disc brakes borrowed from the Jaguar E-Type Salisbury differential. An AC radiator, a longer trunk lid, flat hinges left over from the original Ace. If you knew what to look for, it was obviously not a production car. Nobody looked. The official story is clean and simple, but Shelby fans have been arguing about one detail for decades. Peter Brock, who was Shelby's first employee, claimed that CSX 2001, the second car, was actually assembled in Pittsburgh by dealer Ed Hughes before CSX 2000 even arrived in California. Hughes financed the first 5 to 7 cars, personally assembled roughly 19 early Cobras, and was the first American to race a Cobra at Le Mans in 1963. Shelby later pushed him out of the program despite a handshake deal for East Coast distribution rights. The official history starts with CSX 2000. The actual history might not. And that one car, the foundation of the entire Shelby Cobra legend, sold at R.M. Sotheby's Monterey on August 19, 2016 for $13.75 million. It sits today at the Shelby American Collection Museum in Boulder, Colorado. Still runs. Now, the paint job hustle was clever, but it was small time compared to what Ford pulled on Shelby 2 years later. By 1964, young designer Peter Brock's Daytona Coupes were embarrassing Ferrari on race circuits across Europe. The standard 289-powered coupe was hitting 196 miles per hour on the Mulsanne Straight at Le Mans. Shelby saw an opportunity and went for the throat. He ordered fabricator John Olson to stretch a Daytona Coupe chassis 3 inches and install Ford's monstrous 427 SOHC Cammer engine. The single overhead cam unit made 616 horsepower with a single 4-barrel carburetor. Brock estimated the finished car, designated CSX 2286, would weigh just 2,200 pounds and break 200 miles per hour at Le Mans. It would have been the fastest car on the circuit that year. Ford knew all about it. Ford funded it, and Ford made absolutely sure it never turned a wheel at Le Mans. First, they refused to ship the SOHC engine, claiming concerns about overheating. They sent an aluminum 390 block instead, already a significant downgrade. Then the real sabotage kicked in. The clutch never arrived. Neither did the flywheel or the headers. Olsen, stranded at a workshop in Modena, Italy, was fabricating exhaust headers by hand and calling California every night begging for parts that kept getting delayed, rerouted, or just plain lost. The car sat approximately 70% complete, while Le Mans 1964 came and went without it. Peter Brock never minced words about why. Factions inside Ford did not want that car competing with the company's new GT40. Ford had secretly purchased Eric Broadley's Lola Mark VI design in 1963 and was developing it into the GT40 to compete in the prototype class at Le Mans. Henry Ford II was personally obsessed with beating Ferrari after Enzo Ferrari humiliated him by backing out of a buyout deal at the last minute. The GT40 was supposed to be Ford's revenge. A front-engine Cobra beating Ford's own mid-engine GT40 at the same race would have been a corporate humiliation of the highest order, so the parts just never showed up. It was burial by paperwork. Shelby covered for Ford with a story that made him look like a victim rather than a collaborator. He told people the truck carrying CSX 2286 to Le Mans had crashed and damaged the car. Brock called that a flat-out lie. The car was never completed. It never ran. There was no truck crash. CSX 2286 was eventually shipped back to California, shortened to its original wheelbase, fitted with a smaller 289 engine, and raced once at Le Mans 1965 with Dan Gurney and Jerry Grant behind the wheel. It led the GT class and ran as high as third overall before retiring with clutch failure in the 15th hour. Today it belongs to Rob Walton, the Walmart heir. Estimated value, north of $15 million. This decision had ripple effects that went far beyond one car. When Ford handed Shelby the GT40 racing program, it was the end of the line for the entire Cobra prototype pipeline. The Daytona Coupes were abandoned. After winning the 1965 FIA GT3 World Championship, clinched at Reims, France on July 4, 1965, with CSX 2601, the 6 coupes sat around Shelby American with their engines and transmissions pulled for other projects. Nobody at Ford cared about them anymore. The GT40 was the future. Shelby reportedly told Alan Mann Racing in England to dump them in the English Channel. Mann couldn't do it. He shipped them back to California at his own expense. They were sold off for $4,000 to $5,000 each. Cars that are now collectively worth well over $100 million. One of them, CSX 2601, the championship clincher, sold at Meckham, Monterey on August 15, 2009 for $7.25 million, which was, at the time, a record for any American car at public auction. Peter Brock's Type 65 Super Coupe was canceled outright. This was a coil spring chassis with a 427 NASCAR engine, making 485 horsepower at just 2,300 pounds. Brock estimated it would top 214 miles per hour. When the GT40 program landed on Shelby's desk, the Type 65 was terminated. The incomplete car was sold during Shelby American's liquidation and wasn't finished until 1981. And the 427 Cobra itself failed FIA homologation, partly because Ford had pulled Shelby away to focus on the GT40. When inspectors showed up on April 29, 1965, they found only 51 of the required 100 cars completed. The resources that might have finished them were building GT40s instead. Ken Miles, the legendary test driver who believed the Daytona Coupe had more potential than the GT40, had no choice but to shift his focus to Ford's pet project. Miles was lost on August 17, 1966, testing a GT40 J-car prototype at Riverside Raceway. The car broke apart at high speed during a braking test. He was 67 days removed from being cheated out of an outright win at Le Mans by Ford's own corporate stage management. The program that consumed the resources meant for Cobras consumed him too. That's the political story. The mechanical story gets darker. Before the Super Snakes, there was the car that earned the nickname the Turd. CSX 2196 was Shelby's first attempt at stuffing a big block into a small block Cobra. Ken Miles jammed an iron 427 into a Mark II leaf spring chassis and took it to Sebring, where he managed to hit the only tree on the entire circuit and declared the car virtually undrivable. They revised it for Nassau Speed Week with a lighter aluminum 390. Miles led the first lap, then retired with brake problems. The handling was terrible because the chassis was designed for a 260, not an engine twice the weight. That failure directly led to the completely redesigned Mark III coil spring chassis that the production 427 Cobra eventually used. But it also proved something dangerous. An American V8 making 500-plus horsepower in a car weighing 2,300 pounds was going to be fast enough to scare anybody. The Super Snake program took that idea and threw away the safety margins entirely. It was born from wounded pride. Shelby's own attorney, Stan Mullen, embarrassed him by outrunning Shelby's personal 427 Cobra with a Ferrari 275 GTB on the highways around Lake Tahoe. Shelby walked into his shop furious and demanded a car that would obliterate anything on the road. His guys built two. They took 427 Cobras and bolted on twin Paxton superchargers, each feeding 6 pounds of boost through dual Holley 4-barrel carburetors on an experimental Edelbrock intake. Estimated output was around 800 horsepower, though Road and Track suspected a bit of exaggeration in that number. Both cars ran Ford C6 3-speed automatics because no manual transmission on Earth could handle the torque. These were not refined automobiles. They were grudge match machines with license plates. CSX 3015 was Shelby's personal car, built on one of only 23 original 427 competition roadsters. The engine block was date-coded December 17, 1965. Shelby claimed it would do just over 3 seconds to 60 miles per hour and run the quarter mile in the low 11s. Road and Track magazine tested it and called it the Cobra to end all Cobras in their February 1968 issue. That car has crossed the Barrett-Jackson Scottsdale block 3 times, selling for $5.5 million in 2007, $5.1 million in 2015, and $5.5 million again in 2021. Combined, $16.1 million for one car. Under the current Viking blue paint, there are 2 earlier coats, black, and before that, the original Guardsman blue. Every layer tells part of the story. CSX 3303 met a very different fate. Shelby built this second Super Snake as a publicity stunt. Shelby bumped into comedian Bill Cosby at a department store, found out Cosby was daily driving a Ferrari, and decided that was un-American. He had the keys delivered to Cosby's doorstep with a dash plaque that read, "This car is guaranteed to do 200 miles per hour." Cosby drove it once around the block and brought it right back. His 1968 comedy album 200 mph, recorded at Harrah's in Lake Tahoe, described the experience. He joked that the car was idling in neutral with his foot off the gas and it was already terrifying people in the neighborhood. After Cosby returned it, a Ford dealer on Van Ness Avenue in San Francisco sold CSX 3303 to a buyer named Tony Maxey. While driving along the California coast, the throttle jammed wide open. Maxey lost control and drove off a cliff into the Pacific Ocean. He was pulled from the water but never recovered. The wreckage was reportedly recovered, but CSX 3303 has never been publicly confirmed to exist in restored form. It is the one ghost in this story that has never been accounted for. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the cars Detroit tried to bury, hit subscribe. I cover forgotten and suppressed American car history every week. And then there's the Daytona Coupe that simply vanished. Of the 6 Daytona Coupes ever built, all 6 survive today. That's remarkable for a 1960s racing program. But CSX 2287, the prototype, the only coupe built entirely at the Venice, California shop between October 1963 and January 1964, took the strangest journey of any of them. After a racing career that included winning the GT class at Sebring and setting 23 national and international speed records at the Bonneville Salt, flats with Craig Breedlove behind the wheel, topping out at 187 miles per hour, Shelby advertised CSX 2287 in a newspaper for about $5,000, a world championship-winning, Bonneville record-holding prototype race car for the price of a decent used pickup truck. It sold to Jim Russell, the man behind Ruskit slot car models. Russell sold it to music producer Phil Spector. Spector drove it on Los Angeles streets with the casual recklessness of a man who had no idea what he was sitting in. He slapped dubious speed claims on the bodywork with house paint, like a teenager decorating his first hot rod. He racked up so many speeding tickets that his lawyer eventually told him to get rid of the car before he lost his license entirely. Spector allegedly sold it for $1,000 to his bodyguard, George Brand. $1,000 for a car that had won at Sebring and set records at Bonneville. Brand's daughter, Donna O'Hara, stashed it in a California rental storage unit sometime around 1971. She padlocked the door, and the prototype Daytona Coupe vanished from the collector car world completely, and there it sat for nearly 30 years. Collectors and historians searched for it constantly. Everyone feared it had been lost. Carroll Shelby himself drove to O'Hara's house and tried to buy it back. She would not even open her screen door to talk to him. Multiple offers came in, some reportedly around $500,000. All refused. On October 22, 2000, Donna O'Hara passed away in Fullerton, California. A legal battle erupted immediately. O'Hara's mother, Dorothy Brand, sold the car to a rare car dealer, who resold it for approximately $4 million to Dr. Frederick Simeone, a Philadelphia neurosurgeon. Phil Spector contested ownership, claiming he'd only given the car to Brand for storage. The courts ruled the sale was legal. CSX 2287 now lives at the Simeone Foundation Automotive Museum in Philadelphia, preserved exactly as found. Original paint and original tires. It is the only Daytona Coupe that has never been fully restored. And in January 2014, it became the first vehicle ever added to the United States National Historic Vehicle Register, archived in the Library of Congress alongside documents like the Declaration of Independence. A slot car company owner bought it for $5,000. Phil Spector drove it with house paint on the fenders. A bodyguard's daughter hid it in a storage unit for 3 decades, and now it sits in the Library of Congress. You cannot make this stuff up. 2 more Shelby prototypes escaped destruction, though these were Mustangs rather than Cobras. The pattern is identical. Little Red, serial number 0131, was the first and only GT500 notchback coupe that Shelby American ever built. It was the first Shelby coupe to leave the factory with a 428 engine and the first with factory-installed dual quad carburetors. Under Lee Iacocca's direction, it became the template for Ford's wildly popular 1968 Mustang California Special. After Ford extracted every engineering lesson they needed from it, they sent it to Car Craft in Brighton, Michigan to be scrapped. Standard practice for experimental prototypes. Scrap the evidence, protect the intellectual property, move on. Instead of being scrapped, Little Red was somehow diverted to a Colorado dealership and purchased by a Vietnam veteran who had no idea what he'd bought. He just thought it was a cool Mustang. For decades, he contacted the Shelby American Automobile Club trying to get the car authenticated. And every time he was told his car couldn't be genuine because the original Little Red had been scrapped, the record said so. The car in his driveway said otherwise. On March 3, 2018, a team led by Barrett Jackson CEO Craig Jackson and researcher Jason Billups found the car sitting in a field in Weatherford, Texas, where it had been parked and forgotten for over 20 years. Jackson called it the holy grail of missing cars. Green Hornet was a 1968 Shelby EXP 500 prototype with the first independent rear suspension ever fitted to a Mustang. 4-wheel disc brakes, experimental electronic fuel injection concepts, and a custom one-of-a-kind gold luster green lacquer paint job by Sonny Fee, also ordered scrapped. Also survived. Both cars were unveiled together at Barrett Jackson Scottsdale in January 2020, the first time the sibling prototypes had ever been seen side by side. 2 History Channel documentaries about their recovery aired in March 2021, narrated by Carroll Shelby's grandson, Aaron Shelby. Ford ordered them scrapped. They're still here. Now, everything up to this point paints Ford as the villain and Shelby as the underdog. That's mostly true. But Carroll Shelby had his own relationship with deception, and it went further than 5 cans of paint. For 427 Cobra FIA homologation, Shelby had reserved serial numbers CSX 3001 through 3100. He only built 53 cars. He deliberately skipped numbers to create the illusion of higher production. In the 1990s, Shelby exploited this gap. A Los Angeles Times investigation revealed he had obtained 43 duplicate titles from the California DMV through written declarations under penalty of perjury for vehicles that never existed in the 1960s. AC Cars issued an official statement confirming that no unaccounted-for frames from the 60s existed anywhere. Shelby admitted the chassis were manufactured in 1991 and 92 by a company called McCluskey Limited in Torrance, California, not original AC components. Brian Anglis, who controlled AC Cars at the time, alleged that Shelby had asked him to remanufacture a batch of Cobra chassis and ship them into the United States labeled as washing machine parts. These became the CSX 4000 series, continuation Cobras, which later expanded to the 5000, 6000, 7000, 8000, and 9000 series. Some CSX 4000 cars were fitted with 428 engines while being marketed as 427 Cobras. The program remains deeply controversial among collectors. Some see it as Shelby completing unfinished business. Others see something less flattering. Either way, the man who faked a production line with 1 car and 5 cans of paint in 1962 was still finding creative solutions to inventory problems 30 years later. The Shelby Cobra prototype story is not really about corporate villainy, even though there's plenty of that to go around. It's about what happens when an independent racing visionary collides with the corporate machine that funds him. Ford needed Carroll Shelby to beat Ferrari, but only on Ford's terms. The moment Shelby's Cobras threatened to upstage Ford's own GT40, the company choked off parts, redirected resources, and eventually terminated the relationship entirely. Carroll Shelby, for his part, fought back with the only weapons he had: creativity, stubbornness, and a flexible relationship with the truth. The 6 Daytona Coupes, sold for the price of used Corvettes in the late 60s, are collectively worth over $100 million today. CSX 2000, assembled in 8 hours by men who'd been drinking, sold for nearly $14 million. The surviving Super Snake has crossed the auction block 3 times for a combined $16 million. Shelby's own personal 427 Roadster, CSX 3178, which he purchased new in 1966 for $6,088, sold at Meckham in January 2021 for $5.94 million. Cars that were hidden, sabotaged, and abandoned have outlasted every corporate decision that was made against them. And somewhere, possibly in pieces on the California coast, CSX 3303, the Super Snake that claimed Tony Maxey, might still exist. It's the one car in this story that nobody has ever been able to account for. Every other prototype was found, preserved, or restored. This one just disappeared. Carroll Shelby kept a small framed photo of CSX 2000 on his office wall until the day he passed in 2012, the car that started everything. The car he painted 5 different colors to fool the men who were paying for it. He looked at it every single day,